Welcome to the fastest stop in town. Today, we'll start the Sanhedrin of Kuf Tes. We are going to begin on Kuf Tes Amud Aleph by the two dots, about 15 lines from the top. Now, the Dor HaFlaga, which was the generation of the dispersion in which they built the tower in which to wage war against God, in him chilek olam haba v'chulu. They have no portion in the world to come. So, my Ovid, what exactly did they do other than obviously what we know they did? So, Rabbi Shiloi Nivna Migdal, they built up a tower. V'nal Rakia, they tried to get up to the heavens. V'nak Oisai Bikar Dumois, and they were hitting it with an axe. Kadesh Yizayvu Meimov, in order that the liquids and waters should be able to flow out. So basically, they were trying to go all the way up to the heavens to be able to smash through. However, again, do we understand that? It's a little bit complex, but nonetheless, that's the simple explanation. Okay, so Machol Maravos, so they started laughing in Eretz Yisrael. In Cain, Livnu Echa Batura. So why didn't they start building it up on a mountain? Why would they start building it on a lower area? They should have started at the highest mountain and built the tower there, which you end up getting higher up in that way. So Ella Rabbi Yomi bar Eliezer Nechel Gimel Kitos. There's actually three groups. Achas Omeres Nal V'Nashiv Shem. So one said, let's go and I'm going to make a name for ourselves. The other one said, not that we're just going to make a name for ourselves, we're going to worship idols. So that was the second one. A third one says we're going to do war. Now, the one who says make a name, so Hashem scattered them around. So they weren't so significantly punished, but that's what happened to them. Okay. However, Vizusha Emeris Nal V'Nasim fine. Vizusha Emeris Nal V'Nasim Chama, the one who said let's go make war, Nasa Kofim V'Ruchis V'Shedim V'Leilus. It's interesting, it's written out of order here. Those people turned into like monkeys and spirits and demons. Vizusha Emeris Nal V'Nabad, the one who said let's worship idols, the pasuk says Kishem Hashem Kisham boil Hashem's svas kol aretz. It was swallowed up by the edges of the earth. Says Rashi. So again, Rashi wonders why the Gemara is wondering why not build on the mountain. So one shot is depend on the group. That the group that all they did want to make a name for themselves, they were scattered all around. The other nation, the other group that wanted to make war, they became shadim. It says Rashi, Yeshlehem Suras Adam, they look like people, but they eat and drink like people, they're not really people. Ruchin is bli guf etzur, they have no physical body. Lilus is Suras Adam, they have a body. Osheshehem kanafayim, they actually have wings. So Zeus says Rashi, Navanav Zara Kishem Bowl. Bilvad l'shainam, in addition to their language, so basically Hashem caused the people in which wanted to worship idols by not understanding the language, so therefore they weren't able to worship idols. Okay, Tanya Reb Nasan Omer. They actually want to worship idols, all of them. So one it says Naslan shame, it's referring to worshiping idols. With regard to this tower they built, Shlish Nisraf, a third of it got burnt up, Shlish Nivla, a third of it got swallowed into the ground. And Shlish Kayim, the middle part actually still exists. Amarav, Avir Migdal, the top of the tower, Mishkach, caused forgetfulness. Says Rashi, Mirosh Migdal, Kamoi Avir Shal Ir, Misha Ovid Saviv Migdal, someone goes to the top, Varaya Avira, Mara Gaivalanu, Mishkach, Shechin Nigzral Oisumakam, there's a decree on that place, Shishkach, that people should forget. Lakach Heim Atzim Shachu Es L'Shainim, that's how they forgot their language. When you can just understand, like you go up so high to like the death zone in Earth in Mount on the tallest of mountains, like for example Mount Everest, so you can lose oxygen, and therefore you're not going to think clearly, and therefore because of that they weren't able to understand each other. Okay, well, it could be like there's hallucination and stuff like that. Okay, so that is what took place there. Omer of Yosef, Bavel, Ubortzif. When it came to Bavel and Borsif, and the Gemara elsewhere says that really those words are interchangeable. Siman Ra with Torah. They are considered to be a Siman Ra for Torah. That a person will forget their learning because of like the air quality over there. So by Borsif, Omer of Yosi, Bor Sha'afi, like an empty pit. Okay, so some people explain that what the chet was, that they built it taka with avodah zarah. They used the kayach hashemais. So since they had, some explain that since they had achla, so Hashem minimized the chet, as opposed to the situation, as it's famous Chazal, that when it came to the Dor Hamabel, where there was fighting and quarreling and stealing, so that's where the problem arose, that there was destruction. So like Nadav and Avihu wanted to go close to Hashem, maybe it means that they wanted to go to the Shemayim, just like that's like Nadav and Avihu. That's what they wanted to do. So there's a discussion also in the Megras Yam that when it says to Bavel, maybe it's referring to a city, not referring to the entire country. Okay, let's keep going. So again, it's a very fascinating approach, the whole notion of building a tower to fight against God. So it seems very silly almost that that's what they would do. So it's interesting that one idea of shame, we should be able to make a name for ourselves, is actually could be in connection to the Dor Hamabel, that the flood, people drowned. So they said, you know what, let's build a tower on a high place, so we'll be on a very high place, to be able to eliminate the possibility that we'll be able to be killed. Okay, fine. And I often compare this to a very famous scene in the movie Forrest Gump, where this Lieutenant Dan, who was crippled from the war, he went on the very top in the middle of a storm, and he said, I'm going to be able to beat you, God. I'm going to be able to beat you, God. Obviously, he knows that God is omnipotent, but he's basically saying that there's absolutely nothing that you can do to stop me in this instance. And that's the idea, perhaps, of the brazenness of building this tower. Not that they were literally going to be trying to kill God, because otherwise it seems very hard to understand. So they also didn't have a portion. So Tanaban, Anshi Sedai, we're going to learn about this very evil city, a lot of the things that they did, which were quite unbelievable. So what exactly did they do? So Ein Lahem Chelkom Haba Shenemar, because the pasuk says Yanshi Sedam Roim v'Chatoim LaHashem Oid. So Roim is Boam Hazeh v'Chatoim, they sin Loam Haba, even the one to come they were not going to get. Or maybe Huda Roim begufon, they were bad with their bodies. Says Rashi, Shetoifin Bezima, the Shtufa Bezima, they're involved in lewdness and licentiousness and adultery and all these things. The Chatayim b'mamoinim, and they sinned with their money. Roim begufan dechsev eich esa hara hagadoil hazos v'chatas elokim. So this is referring to Yosef. How could I do this bad? Which is referring to being with Ashes Potiphar. V'chatayim b'mamoinim dechsev v'hay b'chachet, and it'll be to you a sin. Says Rashi, v'hainu mamoin, that's referring to money. And then says Lashem, when it comes to Lashem, as we said regarding the Zion, that Shivas mitzvahs b'nei Noach, zu birchas Hashem. Ma'oid, when it says Ma'oid, so Lashem, actually in this passage again, Lashem, is that they're engaged in birchas Hashem. Ma'oid is shemischavonim v'chatoyim, that they were like intentional in their sinning. The Ben Yayad explains that some people pursue the Yetzer Hara and look for actually developing the Yetzer Hara. Okay. So roim b'mamoinam, how are they bad with their money? It was what was bad in your eyes to your brother, Ha'evyoin, the poor one. V'chatoyim begufan dechsev v'chatasi lokim. Hashem's reberachas Hashem. We agree on that. Ma'od zu shvichas damim. They are actually involved in bloodshed. Shnemar gam noki shavach menashe b'rishim harbi ma'od. So it says the word ma'od, so therefore this is referring to shvichas damim. The goymer. Tanaban. Anshi said doyim lunis goya el b'shvil toiva sheshpiel lehem HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The reason why the Anshe Sodom sinned the way they did is because of the hardiness, because of all the blessings that they had. Because they were given so much, that actually would cause them to sin. What does it say about them? Eretz mimena yatzalachem, that from the land went out bread. The tachtan nefach kamoesh, and the opposite was like fire. Mokum sapir of neha, the afri zahav, a place of sapphires of stone and afri zahav of gold. Lo netziv lo yada'u eat, that they did not to them netziv it was checked. Lo yadu eat, it was not known. Says Rashi. There's no Rashi on this. So Lomolanu Drachim, what is it to these passerby? She'ain Boimalenu El Chasreinu Mimainu. They're only coming to be able to take away from our money. So what basically must mean that they had a tremendous amount of money, that they're saying all these people that come to our city, they're just trying to take our money away, which obviously means it was the money that they had is what caused their downfall. Let it be forgotten the notion of people basically traversing to our city. Shenemar parts nachal mi'im ger hanishchim miniragel doloit is forgotten those who go with the foot. The anishna'u, the wandering, will be destroyed. Darish Ravamaynechiv ad anna tihai sahu al ish, that until when will there be this mischief or a plot upon a man? Tirtzachu kulchem, they will all die. Kikir natui gader, just like a wall or a fence that's basically going to tip over. Hadechuya, which is like leaning over. Malamid, what did they used to do? They would look at the wealthy people, like we say now, tax the rich, right? We hate rich people who are more successful, which really is just a sign of jealousy on your part. But this is actually a very similar midah, a midah sedaim. They would put him up against a weak wall. And they would push the wall. So they would kill him and take his money. So they saw someone who had money, instead of saying, okay, it's very nice, they're rich, they looked at them as evil, and that we have to get rid of the wealthy people, the billionaires, the oligarchy, all this stuff, right? They say the reality is that that's what they did. The Marsha says that actually they would set them up. They would basically say, you broke the wall, so you need to pay for it. So they basically twisted the law. Not that they killed him necessarily, but they had him like leaning against the wall, which was going to fall anyway, and the wall fell, and all of a sudden he said they charged him money and sued him. Darish Rabbi Ma'anechsev Hatar B'chayshech Batim, they dig at night the houses, Yomam during the day, Chasmu Lomoy, it'll be closed up, Lo Yura'u Yadu, or it will not be seen or known light. They would look at wealthy people. Mafkidin etzlo efrasimim. They would give them like, say, could you do me a favor? Can you store some besamim? These are very expensive. Can you put it in a very safe place? Obviously, because they wanted to put it in a safe place. They would put it into their safe. They would act like a dog. They would be sniffing around like a dog to smell. Yehovu Kikelev, that they would return like a dog. They went around the city. And they went and dug there. And they took the money. So basically they said, can you do me a favor and watch my spices? And they did it on purpose to be able to know that these people who are wealthy would put those spices with their money, and then and it would end up using that as an opportunity to smell out their wealth. Aram holchu mebli lavoish. The naked will go without clothing. Ve'ein kasus bikar, and there will be no garments when it's cold. Chomer yisayimim yinhagu, that the donkeys will be taken away from them. Yichvelu shor almana, as well as the ox of the widow. Kevulois yeshigo ader gazum yiru. That regarding the land which would be plowed was stolen and grazed. V'hulik forest yuval v'al gedish, regarding this grave v'al gedish, and it became tombs. Yishkoid, were these fields. V'al gedish yishkoid. Darish Rav Yosef Sipari after in Ahilayla, they would during the daytime they dug at night tlos meya 300 machtarta b'tzipari, 300 areas with regard to the smell of spices. Also v'ka mitzarile sarmale yahavi orche leganve. So he said, you're teaching them how to steal. Why would you tell them about this whole spice business? Who knew that they would come and steal to my location? When Rav Yossi died, Shafi Marzaviditzipari Dama. There was blood that was pouring through the gutters. Amri the Isli Chantura, one who has one ox, Mare, he has to be the shepherd Chad Yomer for one day. Delay Slayre, if you don't have any animals, Lere Trey Yomi, then you have to be a shepherd for 2 days, which makes no sense, but that's what they did. Tahu Yasma, there was basically the rich get richer. Tahu Yasma bar Ar Malta, there was a Yasam who was the son of an Almana. Havule Turi Lamar, and he had an ox to be a shepherd. Azur Shakulinu Vikatlinu, so they went and took it and killed. Now, according to this, the Marsha says that now he is gone. You didn't appreciate him. He did much. Now you see a lot worse. So Azur Shakulinu Vikatlinu, Sarmalahu, as we continue the Kuf Testament Bays. The Isle Tura, if a person has an ox, then Nishkol Chad Mashcha, he can take one skin. The Lay Tura, if he doesn't have an ox, Nishkol Trey Mashcha, he should take 2. Says Rashi, Kachayim and Hagim, this was their custom, Shalanchi Sadaim. Mihoyelu Shorech, if he had an ox, Horay Kol Behemus Ha'ir. Yomechad, you had to be a shepherd for 1 day. Umisha Ein Lo Behema, if you had nothing, Megalgan Olav Luris Pays Yomim. We made you do the job for 2 days, which they don't sense. You don't even have an ox. Why would you have to do this at all? So that's what happened. Okay, fine. So Amrulay, my high, what is this? Amrulahu, save dina katchilos dina. The end is like the beginning. Matchilos dina di isle tura. If you have an ox, mare chad yoima, you only have to do 1 day. So leislu tura. If you don't have an ox, mare tre yoima, you do it 2 days. Av save dina, so to at the end. Di isle chad tura. If you have one ox, lishkoil chad, you can take 1. The leisle tura lishkol tre. If you don't have, then you can take 2. So you need to help those in need, or if you don't treat the poor fairly now, then you'll need to give them more. Okay. The avar b'mavra, someone who passes by a ferry, nesev chad zuz, it costs $1, 1 zuz. The loy avar b'mavra, nesev trey, so which makes no sense. If you have to if there's a toll to go through a bridge like the Verrazano, so why would it be more expensive to not cross it? There was this row of bricks. And every person took a brick. I only took 1 big deal. To me, there were these onions or shamchi or garlic. Everyone came and shakal chad took 1. I only took 1 big deal. Of course, then there'll end up being nothing left. There's 4 interesting ways that they judged. Shakroy, with lies, the shakruroi, zaifu with forgery, umatzli dina with rationalization. The machile isasa the chavre, if a person hits his friend's wife, who is pregnant, umifule, and she has a miscarriage, armule yahavinile, dina avra nihilach. So you have to take this woman and you have to continue having relations with her until you impregnate her, until she gets pregnant. Since you're the one who took away her pregnancy, so you have to go and keep having relations until she got pregnant again. The pasuk le udne the charev, you cut off the ear of a donkey, the charev of your friend, you should have him continue by you, this animal, and the kadcha de parule l'chaver, until the ear grows back of your friend's donkey, which of course will never happen. So therefore, you basically get to keep the donkey forever. Again, this is the logic of Sedayim. Armule havule agr de shakalach dama. So let's say a person gives payment for bloodletting. The avr b'mavr yoiv. So what it's basically saying is that if you would hit your friend, so then the din is, then you have to pay him for bloodletting. The avar b'mavr, if you pass the ferry, yoiv arbezuz, costs 4. The avar b'mai, if you go by foot, yoiv tamni suzi, it costs more money, it costs 8. Zimnachadu also who kaivis, there was this launderer, the ikul hosam went there, so Malay, they said, Havdalad Zuzi, give me 4. Amlahu Anaba Mayavri. What do you mean? I went through the water by foot, so I shouldn't have to pay so much. So Malay Im Kain have Tamni. In that case, give more, give 8. The Avart Bamai, because you passed by the water. So Yoiv didn't give it to him. Pidyuhu, they began to hit him. Askme the Daini, they went to the judge. Amalay Havle Agr the Shakalach Dama. You also have to pay for the bloodletting that they did by them hitting you so many times that you were bleeding, so you have to pay them for that. The Tamni Zuzi the Amrs Maya, and also 8 for passing by foot. Eliezer Eben Avraham is Srami Hassam. Eliezer himself actually was in Sodom once, and Piduhi, and they hit him too. Askame Daini went to a court. Malay Havule Agr the Shakalach Dama. You have to pay for the bloodletting. So Eliezer went, and he shakled Galola Pidyohi, and he took a stick to hit him. Ihuadaini, to actually go and hit the judge. So I'm my hi, well, what are you doing? What are you doing? Beating up the judge. Armalei Agra denafki liminach have nihili lahai. Zuzi didi kidikaimi kaima. So you're saying because I got whacked and I'm all bleeding, so therefore I have to pay this other guy who hit me. So I'm going to hit you, the judge, and instead of you, the judge, having to pay me, why don't you just pay that guy, and then I'll just be okay. Fine. Let's stop 1 second. So let's look at question 8. So we saw already in yesterday's daf the door hamabul, and here we see anshe Sodom. Question 9. Keitzad Pater Eliezer Eved Avraham es Atzmo. How did he free himself? Kishiposku lo b'snoim, when they said Shiitin schar l'makeu shahitzi damai, that he had to pay money because someone let blood. So that we just saw, he basically threatened to hit the judge. Havilu par yasa dehavi meganil la urchen. This is a famous Gemara, that there was a special bed specifically for guests. Ki marich gaitzile, ki goyitz machtinle. So if the guy was not so big, they would stretch him out to meet the size of the bed. If he was small, then that's what they would stretch him out. If he was too big, they would chop off his limbs, like his legs, until he reached the size of the bed. Eliezer Eved Avraham Ikul Hasam, he went. Amalei Kum Gani Apuri, sleep in this bed. Amalhoin Nidri Min Yoima Demisas Ima, that there was a decree since the time of my mother's passing. Lo Ganina Apuri, I'm not allowed to sleep in a bed. Smart move. Ki Havi Misrami La Anya. So when I'm going to go and pass by, Yoivle Kol Chad V'Chad Dinrin, everyone gave to a poor person some coins. The Ksiv Shme'alei, his name was on the coin of the person who gave the coin. Verifta loy havi, but they didn't give any bread. Mematile ki havi, and also there was no bread for him to be able to buy. So ki havi mason, when he died of starvation, also kol chad v'chad shakel didei, everyone took their coins. So hachi asni b'naihu. This was the condition they made among themselves. Kol man demazmin gavra lebei hilula. Anyone who basically invites someone to your wedding, l'shalech glima, they will strip them off their garments. Havi Hi Hilula, there was this particular wedding. So Iko Eliezer, somebody went there. Didn't get bread. Kibo Lamisa, when he wanted to have the Suda, also Eliezer Yosef Litzifa, the Kuhu. He sat at the end table from everyone. Amalei Man Azim Hasim, who invited you here? So Yahudi Yosef Asa Zimos, and that person who's sitting over there is the one who invited me. So Omri said, Dilma Shamib B Da'ana Azmane. Maybe it was me that invited him. Mishalchi le manid b'hai gavra. And they were going to take the garments. This person's going to be without garments. So Shaka Glime Hahu Diosef Gabe Verot Lebra. He ran outside. V'chein Avad L'kul. This is what he did to everyone. Ad Denafki Kul, until everyone left. The Achal Ihu was Sudas, and he was able to eat the Suda. So basically, he's saying, "Oh, it was him that invited me. Him invited me." So basically, and everyone who was accused, they all ended up leaving, and therefore he was okay. He was able to eat the meal fine. Havia he Ravisa, was the young girl. The Havika Mafka Rifta La'ania Bechatzba. And she brought out some bread to the poor people in a jug. Yali Milsa, they found out about this girl. And she did a good thing. So Shafi, they smeared her with dufsha, with honey, v'ukmuha al igar shura, and they put her by the city wall. Asa zimure v'achua. The bees came and consumed her, killed her. She was stung to death. V'hainu nechsev v'yemer Hashem zaka sedayim v'amara ki rabba. V'yemer Yehuda marav al iske riva. It's referring to this girl, al iske riva. Okay, fine. So this shows again the evil of the Anshi Sedayim. Maraglu Minahim Chel Kolom Habash Never Yamusu Hanoshim Oitzi Dibas Aretz. Rabba Megefa, those people again who spoke bad about the land of Eretz Yisrael will die. Yamusu, and they died. Now what does that mean? Yamusu is Be'om Hazim, and Megefa is Om Haba. Adas Karach Enhem Chel Kolom Habash Never. But the earth covered them up. Biom Hazeh, V'yavdu B'teicha Kol Om Haba. They Rabbi Kiva. Rabbi Eliezer Oimer Aleim Akasav Oimer. And then the pasuk says Hashem Meis Mechaya Morid Shoyel V'Oil. Okay. Tanu Rabbanon. Adas Kairach Enel Hilom Chel Kom Haba. They don't have a portion. Shnemer V'tchas Aretz Aretz Biom Hazeh V'yavdu B'teicha Kahal Om Haba. They Rabbi Kiva. It's just like a lost object. That's seeking to come back. They'll be just like this sheep that has gone astray. They're searching out your servant. They didn't forget your mitzvahs. So these were special people that were able to be mekayim them. V'yakum kairach. So v'yikach karach, he got up, he took. So he made like a bad mekach for himself. Karach shenasa karcha. What does it mean karach? Shenasa karcha b'Yisrael. He made like bald spots, if you will, in Yisrael, which the Maharsha explains. Now the Malbim, when it comes to karach v'chol adasai, okay, we'll get to that in a second. Ben Yitzar, Ben shehartiach olav eskol olam k'tzarayim. He incited the whole world just like the burning sun. Ben Kahas, Ben Shihaka Shinoi Moilidu Bain. That it's the teeth were knocked out, those who gave birth. Levi Ben Levi, Ben Shinasa Levi Gehenna, someone who became like an inmate to the Gehenna. The Leich Shoiv Nami Ben Yaakov. Why does it stop by Levi? Why does it continue Ben Yaakov? So it's Ben Sheikav Atzmol Gehenna, and you can say like he was tricked himself to go to Gehenna. So Amar Shmuel, Amar Shmuel, Bar Rabbi Yitzchak, Yaakov bikish rachamim al atzmo. He asked that he shouldn't be associated with Kairach. Shenemar, but Saidam, the secrets, al tavu nafshi, uvekihilam al techad, kivoidi b'sadayim al tavu nafshi. So what is that? El Meragun. That's referring to the spies. Uvekahasim al techad, kivoidi ze adas Kairach. Fine. Dasan, who's Dasan? She'avar al das kale, that he went against the ways of God. You can see the Marsha. Avirim, das Dasan Aviram is she'iver atzmo ma'asais tshuva, that he refused among himself to do tshuva. V'oin sheyashiv ve'aninus, he sat in mourning. Peles shenasu lo plois, that wonders occurred. Ben Ruvain, Ben Shiroya Lahavin. Fine. Over Oin Ben Peles, Ishto Hatzilasai. Interesting, his wife actually saved him. This is the greatness of having a good wife. That Oin Ben Peles could have been killed, just like the rest of them, but he was spared because of his wife. What happened? So Amalei, she said to him, "My nafki, what's the whole purpose of you getting involved with Kairach and his assembly? Imar Rabba Antalmida, Imar Rabba Antalmida. That either way, you're going to end up being ruled. You're just going to be a student. It's either going to be Kairach and his Adasai and not Moshe, or the other way around, right? So there's really no benefit of you taking a position, because you can't take a position of power yourself. So therefore, you should be opposed to what's, this whole notion of Kairach. Okay, so therefore he was actually spared. And what should I do? So Havi Be'etza gave advice. Vishtabi, give me advice. Vishtabi li bahadayu, so that I can be able to say this to Kairach, it won't bother me. So she said like this: Yadana de kol kanista kedishta ninhu. We know that every single place of worship is holy. Dachsiv kikol ha'eda kulam kedoshim. So he said, Tuv, sit, you sit. Diana matzilna lach, and I'll save you. So ashkiasa chamra va'arvase. So they drank some wine and got drunk. The agnise gavoy, and I was in the inside. Oisva al baba, and I'll sit on the outside. So you'll just be drunk, and you'll stay inside. As we can the Kuf Yud, the Sarta Limazge, I'm going to open up my hair. Called the Asa Chazi Hadar. Anyone who sees me is going to turn around. The Hachmi Avulhu. In the meanwhile, they were swallowed up by the ground. So Yonasan Ibashitz says that they all wanted to be Kohanim Gedolim, but you need Beso Zuishto, right, to be a Kohen Gadol. You need the Kedusha of the bias. The Kohen Gadol brings their karbanos for his own home, like for Klal Yisrael. So she uncovered her hair to say that there is no Kedusha in this house. So you're not fit to be among the Adas Kairach, you're not fit to be Kohen Gadol, so therefore there's no benefit of you doing what you're doing. So therefore he basically withdrew. Issei the Kairach, the wife of Kairach, Amalei, she said the opposite. Chazi, my kovid Moshe, look what he's doing. Ihu Habi Malka, he's a king. Ach Shavi Kahana, and his brother Aaron, he made into this Kahana Rabbi, the Kohen Gadol. Livnei Achoi, to the nephews Shavinhu Sagni, they made him like assistants to Kahana, like a Sagan Kohen Gadol. So Asai Truma, if Truma comes, Amir to have you a Kohen, they'll say give it to a Kohen. Asa Meiser, for if let's say Meiser comes, the Shakwisu Atoin, you take it. Sarmul, who's a Levi. Sarmulhu Chad Miyud Lekoyin, 1/10 goes to the Kohen. V'oid, the guy is Leila Migzaichu. And also cutting your hair, Umitluchu, and they're mocking you. Ki kufta eina yoiv b'mazaichu, because there's like dirt in your eyes, and this is what they're giving you. Says Rashi, V'haviru tar al kol basaram, just like we cut all the hair. Umasachik b'chem ki'ilu atem shaitim. It's a joke, like they're fools. Sarmullah, so Karach said to her, Ha ihu nami ka'avid. But you also do this. You cut his hair. Sarmullah kivandekuhu ravusa didai. It's all his idea. Armor ihu nami tamois nashim polishnim. Doi di karmuchu avdisu tachlasa. Isachadar tachlasa chashiva mitzvah. If it's a mitzvah, so apiglimi the tachalta. He took out the tchelas outward. V'kasin hulukuhu mibesecha, and she covered all up with tchelas, the whole garment. Hanurksiv chachmas nashim bonsa, the wisdom of women build base houses. Zu ishta shel oin ben pelas. The veles biyada tiharsena, and the wicked women, they will destroy their house. Zu ishta shel kairach. So the Maharshal explains. So why do we get him drunk? Since it was a shvua, so that he couldn't hear them call him. The Chassam Sofer says that everyone is kadosh, so all the people should be holy. So that's that notion of tchelas, that everyone should have been honored. And that's the idea of what Karach's thought was, and of course his demise. But again, we see, interestingly enough, the power of a good wife. Okay, we're going to stop there. Let's see, maybe a couple of questions. TA 28. Almin Nemar Tiisi Kase Oived Keaveda Hamisvakeshes. What are we comparing this person who is like a sheep that is lost, and like a lost object that we are searching for? And what do we learn out from this according to one opinion? So this we had on this daf, and this is referring to the Bnei Karach to teach us the Yeshelhem Chelek L'Olam Haba, that they do have a portion in the world to come. Okay, question TB 29, Ketzad, which we just had. Ketzad is the same question as question 9. This is Kuf Testament Bays, TB 29. Just put this down here. So Ketzad Pater Eliezer Eved Avraham al Eitzaso Kisheposku Loy Besedoyim Shitin Schar al Makeu. So who hika es hadayin ve'achshav hadayin mochayev litain le'Eliezer. Who oimer b'maimed shlashton, there are 3 people. Kishadayin din naisin hakesav le'ish shehu makeh. You just pay him directly. Ad kan.